Let's talk about the implications of having a bunch of children and getting a bunch of women pregnant. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. This commenter here says, I feel like there's men that want to have lots of kids too. I know plenty of men that have 5 to 15 kids by all different kinds of baby mamas. So, there is such a thing as a breeding fetish or a breeding kink where people get turned on by the idea of being impregnated or impregnating someone else. So I do think that is a thing. I don't think, I know for sure it is a thing, and I've seen this in people. We've all seen it play out where we've had men talk about it, celebrity men talk about, doing this and then later, years later, then sort of reflecting down the line when in my experience and working with people who do this, it usually stems from sexual trauma. Again, this is my experience. If you have different experience, that's totally fine. But in my experience in working with people who do this, especially men who do this, there's usually a history of sexual assault, or some sort of sexual trauma history in their past. And when they do this, there is, how can I put this in a good way? There is a way in where they're trying to prove their masculinity, particularly if they are questioning their sexual orientation. A lot of men who've been sexually abused or sexually assaulted question their sexual orientation for many years, and may some even indefinitely, and they get triggered by the thought of homosexuality, or even bisexuality, or just anything that just doesn't fit the narrative of what a man's man is supposed to be in their mind. And so their workaround around doing this is by being lustful, hypersexual, and also proving to themselves that they can get turned on. They may have pornography addictions and other things to sort of get them stimulated. But this is a form of sexual, what I call sexual recklessness, where they're going to act out. They are going to prove it to themselves that they're not gay, that they're not fighting sexual demons. But in doing so, they don't think about the consequences. They think about the here and now and that 5 minutes of, oh, this feels good. But they don't think about the long-term consequences of, 5, 10, 15, 20 years later. All of a sudden they look up, they got 20 kids by, all these different women, none of whom they don't really have a solid relationship with, and all that kind of stuff. And so they don't think about the consequences of creating broken homes. They just think about more, they're just more in their minds and thinking about what they need to prove to themselves. And at the end of the day, that still doesn't, after doing all that, creating all this stuff, it doesn't necessarily fix anything. The other side of it is having a love addiction or sex addiction. Again, a lot of that tends to stem from trauma. In my background, sexual abuse, sexual assault history. And it's big in the trafficking community as well. Women who've been trafficked, prostituted, and things like that. And, even when they get out of it, people still struggle with these addictions. They fall in love quick, and they fall in love with everybody, have sex with everybody, type of deal. And again, this isn't a one size fits all. I'm just talking generally in terms of what I've seen over the years. And other things, other ways that I've seen this in terms of people who have kids. There are people who like having babies. Babies bring attention. They bring gifts. People love babies, so a baby is an offering to the community. Because if I have a baby, then I will get all this attention and all this love and all this support. And don't let me be a daddy, a single daddy with a baby. Oh my gosh, women just fawn all over that, and coup and all this, that can be very much an attention getter for both women and men, and they love that attention. People don't like babies when they grow up to be children, but they like the attention of like newborns and toddlers. And again, this is the general thought pattern that I'm describing, not necessarily how reality plays out, but just the general thought pattern. So, they could have, and so that attention that they get from babies becomes very intoxicating. And it's like, okay, well, they track it to, I got the most attention, I got the most love, I got the most adoration when I had a baby. So let me have another one. And that could be for people who are both in and out of relationships. Because even when they're married, I hear people say this all the time. I watched a show, Married to Medicine. Um, a doctor up there, like way back in the earlier seasons, there was a question about her and her husband's marriage, she and her husband's marriage. And she was like, I think we should just have a baby. My husband pays the most attention to me when I have a baby. He loves on me and he dotes on me more when I have a baby. So that's their solution. And as a therapist, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard this over the years. That is a more common than not solution that people have when they want to bring a relationship back together. Let's just have another baby. A lot of people feel like, okay, well, we were happy, we were in love, he stayed, he doted on me, and vice versa. So let's just have another baby. But a lot of times, too, there are people that just, we do what we do now and we think about the consequences later as well. So they're not necessarily even thinking about a baby. I'm just going to do what I do and who cares about the consequences? But a lot of times, that is usually a person that has some genuine deep down struggles in sexuality and sexual orientation. Thanks so much for this.